Welcome artists. In today's video, our goal is to practice carving into our printmaking block and get familiar with using our gouge safely and accurately in order to produce a range of carving marks and shapes and lines so that we can familiarize ourselves with some of the capabilities of our printmaking carving tool. So let's clear our space and get started. All right, first we're gonna use our pencil and we're gonna draw a line on our printmaking block on just one side. I'm using this to demonstrate multiple things, so yours will be blank on both sides. So on one side, you're gonna draw a straight vertical line down the middle of your printmaking block, and then we're gonna write test on the left side, and then eventually we will be carving our first pattern on the right side. So we're gonna go ahead and label that to keep them organized. And then we're gonna draw a series of lines over in this test section, shapes, and then some mark making and lines as well. So that way we have a guide of what we're going to be carving on this block. So the first section, we're gonna draw a variety of lines. So we're gonna do a series of vertical lines. I'm gonna make them different heights. Then we're gonna do some horizontal lines. And then we're gonna squeeze in some curves going from the left to the right. So they're curving downwards to the right. Think like a slanted rainbow or kind of like a Wi-Fi signal. I guess the Wi-Fi goes this way. Anyways, okay. And then here in this middle section, we're gonna draw some shapes. We'll start with a square. Then we'll do a triangle. And then we'll draw a circle. And you do want to make sure, I got right up on this line, you want to make sure you're not going to carve into this section. You want to keep this blank. It should still be blue. And then also you don't want to draw or carve into this because your first test pattern will go here as another exercise later on. Also, if you have some room, let's do a couple of other triangles just to get some little triangles, just to get some more practice and see what that's like to do some smaller areas versus larger areas for the way we'll be carving here. And then in this last bottom section, we're gonna do some diagonal lines, some mark making, so it'll look like cross hatching. We're gonna draw some larger ovals, but it'll look like big chunks get taken out of this, so it kind of makes a cool texture pattern. Let's interact with that edge. And then let's do a zigzag line here. And then you've got some space where you can do some extra carves. Okay, now that we've got our test section drawn out, we're gonna go ahead and get started carving. But first things first, we need to make sure that we are not carving on our table like so. We want to get set up with our bench hook. Make sure it is secure to the edge of the table so it's not going anywhere. We've got our carving tool, our gouge. We want to make sure it's not wiggling. So I'm gonna check in the middle of the blade and I'm gonna check here to make sure it's not knocking around. It's nice and secure. And then we're gonna set up our printmaking plate, not in the middle, not at the edge of the table, but make sure you scoot it all the way to the top. So that way when we're carving, if anything happens, it's going straight to the top of the bench hook. All right, we're ready to get going. Okay, before proceeding with carving while I'm demonstrating, I'm gonna ask that you watch only, just watch a section be carved, so that way I can give you tips and you can see what's happening. Then I'm gonna have you pause the video and complete that section of your test block carve. And then you'll move to the next section, you'll watch, then you'll carve, and then you'll watch, and then you'll carve. So you'll repeat this. So that way you're not trying to listen and watch and, oh my goodness, Kirk. Make sure no Kirks are around to distract you as well. That way you're not getting distracted and trying to multitask too much of watching the video and getting your test block carved. I really want you to be able to be focused on using both of your hands safely and also getting familiar with this tool and not having to try to worry about keeping up with the video. So you're working at your own pace. Okay, so for your carving today, remember we are going to not dig into the plate. You want to just scratch. It's almost like you're going to be scratching the surface of these lines, and we're just going to dig our tool in a good amount, but not like all the way to the bottom. You want to just scrape away from the surface, and then if it's not enough, you can always go back. So I kind of rotate. I keep my hand on the bench hook, and sometimes I'll use it to stabilize my printmaking tool, but remember you can do either or. Your hand just should not ever be up here. That is absolute no, terrible, not safe. So you're also gonna start kind of getting comfortable with, do you like to use your non-dominant hand to guide your tool today, or do you rather keep that hand back here, or maybe stabilizing the back of your plate? So you're just gonna be also figuring that out as you're working today. So we're gonna go ahead and start. Remember, we're gonna be carving the line on these. So not in between spaces, but we're gonna be following the line on this. Oops, my plate is wiggling already, so I'm gonna scoot it back up to the bench hook. There we go. First carve done. I'm just firmly pushing down as I guide it through the plate. Just carving out the lines. It goes pretty smoothly once you get the hang of it, but not rushing. I'm making sure I'm watching the blade as I move it through the lines on the plate. Okay, literally had to pause that for a whole cuddle break with Kirk. Okay, we're going back to carving. There we go. Okay, pause this video so you can now complete your first set of vertical lines carved with your gouge. Okay, now we're back and we're gonna be carving these horizontal lines. We are absolutely not going this way. We need to turn our plate first, so that way when we're carving, if we were to slip, we're hitting the bench hook. Once your plate is turned, you're gonna start carving just the line, just the line. Oops, that just flung off. All right, pause this video so you can complete this section and push play when you're ready to come back. All right, welcome back. We're gonna flip our plate so that we can do these curved lines. And for mine, they're kind of touching, but it's practice, it's okay. I'm also gonna kind of rotate my tool down farther to carve these up so you can make it work for your plate. I don't recommend that you keep your printing plate this direction because it's gonna be kind of odd to go like that. You can just make sure it's oriented so you feel comfortable where you would hit the bench hook. That way, I'm gonna kind of move mine over like this and then practice my curves. Digging a little bit further than the surface, but not super deep. Not super deep. Okay, pause, and it's your turn to do that section. Press play when you're ready. Okay, for these shapes, we are actually not just gonna be carving the outline of the shape, but we're gonna practice carving the entire section out. So I'm gonna fill this in with a pencil. You can do this if you want to remind yourself that, but this is going to give a different print than just the outline. So if we were to carve only the shape, it would just look like a drawn edge. But if you were to carve a whole section, the whole section when you print leaves the paper showing, not the ink. So this would give us a different look on our print. Okay, so what this is gonna look like is you're gonna make sure your plate is secure, and you're gonna carve. You can carve this multiple ways. You could carve down and up all the way to the top, all the way across. You could outline your shape first and rotate your plate. So you can approach it many different ways. I'm gonna do the lines facing the bench hook first. Then I'm gonna rotate it. Pause for cat traffic. And then I'm gonna go back and I'm going to just carve out the whole gap or the whole space. This is so satisfying. Now what we'll notice later on is how we're carving this now. If you have all these ridges, if they're high enough up, when you're inking your plate, they could show. Some people love that, so it has kind of a textural look. Some people don't. So you might go back in and carve that little top, this right here, this little top section off. I'm not gonna carve it, I'm just gonna point to it, but like that, like if you chunk that away so it's deeper like that, then it would not show up on your plate. But some people like those ridges. I'm definitely one of them. I like that look, but that'll just come into preference later as you get more experience with printing and you see the end image. So for now, I'm just gonna practice carving the top surface of that. I'm not gonna go back and worry about all those ridges. So that's great, fabulous. Okay, pause and do your square. All right, next the triangle. This one has multiple diagonals. So again, just make sure you're orienting it the way it would go with towards the bench hook. And then carve out this middle section. And then for the little ones, these are gonna be trickier because our tool is kind of the width of these triangles. So you're only gonna need to make a few carves. And it might not be, oof, this one's tricky. There we go. It might not be exact, that's okay. Just wanted you to experience that. If you have a smaller shape, we're not gonna go down. I'm gonna have to rotate the plate. Go this way. My little tiny triangle, my little nacho chip. I'm gonna keep my plate this way. This one, but when you have a smaller shape or a smaller line, it might not be exact with your printmaking tool. You kind of have to let go of that perfectionism a little bit and do what you can with the tool that you have. So there, that's good enough. All right, the circle, it's got so many curve, or it's got a big old curve. We're gonna start on one side and curve until we reach the top. If you're using your, if you're left-handed, you might start with the left curve and go that direction. But since I'm right-handed, I'm gonna go this direction since I feel most comfortable with that. I'm really gonna take my time practicing this curve. And I'm gonna stop as I get to the top. And I'm just gonna keep doing that method. So I'm just gonna rotate it each time my blade is like lining up. Like if I'm seeing the edge line up with the bench hook, that's when I stop. Like that top part, I'm not gonna go down towards myself. There we go. And not the most perfect circle. So you can kind of outline by carving on the edge and then carve out the rest of the circle. All right, last row is gonna be these variety of mark making sections. I'm gonna start with this direction. actually this way. Here we go. And for this, we're gonna be following the lines. So you're gonna put your carving tool down in the line, skate it across a little below the surface. I'm gonna switch. I'm gonna actually move the plate over this way. I feel more comfortable with, so it doesn't, and then just hold back here. Actually, I'm gonna very carefully keep my finger there to stabilize this part since it's so close. There we go. I'm running into these grooves, so it is like there is some resistance. That's why I'm going a little bit slower on this as I'm carving this waffle pattern. There we go. That's pretty cool, actually. That was satisfying. And then for these, I'm also kind of rotating my body as I'm sitting, so I'm not just sitting straight forward like this. My body's actually angled this way to help guide my tool in that direction. The goal is that we're practicing having to navigate some more tricky spaces on this bottom row. For this one, we're not going to just carve these circles. This would be something I would recommend where you're carving out the entirety of the shape. So we're gonna press our tool in, get as much as possible, kind of like the triangle. We could leave it like that, kind of like, but I'm gonna make it more like a little bean shape or an oval. So there we go. And I'm also, as I'm moving the tool, I'm kind of skating it up and around so it has a curve to the edge. If I was just keeping it, there we go. If I was just keeping it straight, they would just look like diagonal lines, and I don't want them to be diagonal. And we've got multiple of these, so maybe your first three kind of came out not great. Maybe they're a little trash, as people would say, but you know, you can't make things until you make them not well or figure out how to make them better with improvements. So you've got multiple chances. So just keep going. Practice curving your tool as you dig it into the plate, but not deeply, deeply digging it into the plate. All right, last but not least, we've got our zigzag. This one's kind of tricky. So I would recommend that you are going in the direction of one diagonal towards the bench hook first, and then we'll rotate our plate so it'll look something like this. Then we're gonna rotate our plate, and that way when we're carving these lines, they're going straight to the bench hook. There we go. You finished your test section of your block. Fabulous work. Make sure you check in with me by submitting a picture of this test plate for accountability, and then I'll be also walking around during class and talking with you about some of the things you've experienced as well. Great work.